Drive charging.
How's everyone doing? This is
How's everybody doing? How's it going, guys?
episode 5, part 2
Dun dun
of
dun.
Halloween talk. I'm with my great co-host here,
I'm the Night Watchman.
Rubber Ducky.
the Dark Intern.
The Dark Intern.
This is part 2 of the Halloween special.
All right, so what did we do last week?
Slashers and Halloween, mainly talked about Halloween, but this week we will be talking about all the other genres. Everything that's not a slasher.
First off, we ended last week's podcast with a homework assignment for the Dark Intern.
Homework assignment was to watch any of the provided horror movies that we came up with. Those horror movies were Halloween, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th,
It was
The
big.
Ring. It was
The
a
Shining.
good little list
Exorcist.
of really good movies that you should watch.
10 of arguably the
wanted-
greatest horror movies of all time.
Exactly. And you were told to watch 2. How many of those movies did you watch?
Half of one.
This morning. This morning. And I watched most of it with you.
Add a little
Like I held your hand.
procrastination issues.
Okay, so we're not going to stay on this topic very long, but we're going to at least address it.
Mm-hmm.
What of what you watched, which was the original 1978 Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
what was your impression?
I thought it was well done. I think for the time, I think a film like that was probably really groundbreaking. You know, today, I'm not really sure how many horror movies were coming out back then, but I'm sure the market's a little more oversaturated now today. But I think you can look at a lot of things down the line that obviously took influence and inspiration from that movie, particularly in the slasher genre.
It didn't kick off everything.
No, I know. It wasn't the
Definitely
initial.
Psycho probably kicked off that genre, but it does definitely...
It's up there in terms of its influence.
It definitely, you see a lot of what was in that movie in movies today.
Mm-hmm, definitely. It not even in horror films. I mean, you could have, thrillers that incorporate... Because, horror movies aren't the only movies that are scary at points. You
Halloween, and I don't know Watchman's take on this, but Halloween in today's standards would not be a horror movie. I think it would be a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely a horror movie of its time, but in today's climate, the way it was all done.
Yeah, they let the story develop.
The story developed a lot, and you had to piece things together.
That's what I liked about it. When you were watching with me, he was watching with this morning. He was pointing things out that I wouldn't even pick up. You got to really put the pieces together, which was I like that. I like
Same thing.
Both of you had pointed out about how the movie didn't really tell a lot of backstory. I noticed when you guys were watching earlier, and it doesn't feel like it needs to explain everything. It's one of those movies that leaves a lot to the imagination. Sometimes it seems like in movies nowadays they feel like they have to explain every little thing, and sometimes part of the creep factor is not knowing. Because then at that point in time you play as an audience member the same part as the hero.
It's like you're living in. It's
Well,
really like you're living from there.
Right.
My take, and this is my last thought on Halloween, and I'm moving on. If you compare it to what Rob Zombie did with Halloween, this movie doesn't tell a lot about what's going on. You don't know who the Strode family is. You don't know why Michael's killing people. It's insinuated that she didn't take him trick-or-treating, so he kills her. What I like and don't like about the new Halloween that Rob Zombie did, it told too much of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There was way too much backstory. I liked that because it kind of gives you a glimpse into this different, deep, sociopathic tendency that he had. But at the same time, it was well, now Michael's just a fucked up kid. He just had a fucked up life, and any of us could have turned out like that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know from the original film.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, it starts out first
Yeah.
person of him, and he just
Right.
goes in the house and kills her, and that's
Yeah.
it. Kick it off.
Doesn't you?
So
You wouldn't even. You would have to infer that she didn't take him trick or treating.
Right.
I mean, she says too. He goes, "What about your little brother?" When they're about to go upstairs, and she's like, "Oh, Michael's around here somewhere." That's it. Like that's the
Yeah.
only reference to
Yeah.
Michael at all. And then like he goes and kills her.
Yeah,
So
part of
it's
the
crazy.
fun of movies like that, is not knowing. It goes the same way with the psychological effect, like in the original movie Jaws, where they really never showed the shark.
Yeah.
It's a lot scarier when they don't. I mean, nowadays we have all this technology, like this new movie. I didn't see it, but the Meg, and they show that shark just in the damn commercials. They showed that shark more than they did in the original Jaws. And I think the original Jaws was scarier that way. The original Alien was that way.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that they did that is because the special effects weren't very good back then.
Yeah.
So it was easier to hide it. You know what I mean? Nowadays we got special effects. We can show everything.
Yeah.
But I think psychologically that is just so much more. We even going, you said Psycho. We were talking about the Psycho movie.
You never see him stab her. in
No,
that
it
movie,
was just you
ever.
see a knife, and then you see some blood, and then you see her skin, and then you see her face screaming, and it's just the real odd edits and cuts that you see that's just very disorienting as a...
Yeah. But I mean, think about anything. Like the things you typically are scared of are the things you don't even know.
Correct.
So.
Your imagination.
I think that's why these paranormal movies have become as popular as they have, which we'll transition into.
Yes.
These paranormal movies and like zombie movies and things like that have become more popular because it's like the unknown. Like we have a general idea of how we've created zombies and spirits and whatnot, but like it's something that there is no physical example of. It's just something we've come up with. Like, oh, this is what an undead yet still kind of alive thing that chases us down,
Right.
or this is what a spirit would do, like opening cabinets in the middle of the day, or,
That's what I was
shit
laughing
like
at.
that. Like, just weird.
I always laugh in the paranormal type movies with these ghosts and stuff. How come the ghost doesn't just show his hand night one? How come the first night he just opens a drawer? And that's it. He just leaves a drawer
man.
open. And then the next night he opens a drawer and maybe slams a closet. And then the third night it's like, why don't you just get to it, man? Why don't you just first night just boom, get right to it? The movie would only be 10 minutes long, but it makes more sense.
Like Paranormal Activity, the first one they made.
Yeah.
First thing was like it was a door, and the next day she got
It's like
up.
the ghost has to build up
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
it.
he's
He's
like,
like,
they're-
I'm kind of nervous about this, so let me just open this drawer and see what they think.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It's insane.
It's wacky, but that's the build up of the movie. I understand.
I think we're reaching now a lot trying to find what scares people. I hadn't seen a really good scary movie until like Sinister or The Conjuring or Insidious. Those movies like actually came with something fresh and something new, but it was still just a playoff of things that had already. I think Sinister is probably my favorite one. So like recently,
At
like,
this
that
point,
movie was
how can you
so
take
good.
the influences and transition them into something new? That's where it's at.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, right now it's all about wash, rinse, and repeat.
So what other kind of horror? We've got, your paranormal and your ghost type, and then you've got your, zombie movies.
Zombie.
I love the original Night of the Living Dead. I was just watching it the other day, and it's just so fantastic. Some of the way that he filmed that movie and the claustrophobia of the movie. I mean, just the way he filmed it makes it claustrophobic.
So close up and tight. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And everything is just but like we had talked about on an episode in the past, is that it's not so much about the zombies and what they're doing. They're just kind of the catalyst that's driving the ship. It's more about the dynamic of the people, and how the families or the group of people that are stuck in the house in Night of the Living Dead, the dynamic of how they're getting along in this stressful situation and that kind of thing. And sometimes those kind of movies frustrate me. It goes on too long. I understand that what they're trying to do in the movie, but I feel like that if a situation like that were to happen, you would kind of try to come together and get along a little better than they do in those movies.
Yeah, it always ends up being more about the social dynamic than it does about what's actually going on. And people in the movies, at least, I don't know what it'd be like in real life. But
Well, if you think in time, like, isn't it like statistically like proven, like in times of tragedy and disaster like help each other the most. So
Right.
it's, why?
Yeah,
it's
but think about it this way, and you can go into like the Walking Dead kind of thing. You as a community, like say me, you, and everyone in the office, as a community come together. But then there's other little communities. So like in his case, it was in one little house and they're like freaking out and everybody's like questioning everybody else. But in like other cases, it's like, yes, it's shown that in stress people come together, but it's how all the people come together. So like we may come together as a group, and then the building next to us come together as a group, but they have totally different ideas of what they want than what we want. So they come over and kill all of us because they want our shit. Like. So it kind of just it depends on the dynamic of the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like with your Independence Day, your favorite movie of all time there. Everyone had a common enemy. The same thing with the zombie genre. And I was really excited when Walking Dead came out. I know at the end of last week's podcast I said that I would address Walking Dead. And typically on these geek and nerd podcasts like this, most everybody is a big fan of The Walking Dead, but I was not. I was excited when it first came out, and for the first 2 seasons, I was really on board. But I just felt like there was too much whining in the show. I feel like that if a tragedy like that were to go on, eventually you're going to get used to it. And then there would be a point in like season 3 or season 4 where this mess has been going on for 5 or 6 years. And every time somebody dies and turns into a zombie, they all act like it's the first time again, and they're all crying. And there would be whole episodes of The Walking Dead where it would be nothing but everyone just being all mealy-mouthed and whiny. And it's like, okay, for the first, 6 months or a year or whatever, I understand that. But now it's time to pony up, get the group together, and I think that there could have been more interesting storylines told instead of some of the whininess. Some of the other things that I didn't like about The Walking Dead 2 is like every building that they ever went into or every field that they ever passed, there's a zombie.
Yeah.
There aren't that many people on this planet. Like every field I pass and every building I pass doesn't necessarily have people in it, but every time they do, there's a damn zombie in there. It's like these zombies have triplicated somehow, And then I always go back to, how come they can never smell these things? I was telling you guys a story earlier today about smelling raw meat that had rotted in a store that I had been into one time. And it made me just Ralph all over the place because it was totally disgusting. So I always figured that in The Walking Dead, whenever they went into a house to try to find supplies or whatever, probably pretty much as soon as you open the door, you would know there's a corpse in there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, to play devil's advocate
here we go.
The whole world is rotting now. Everybody.
Yeah, but
there's billions of these zombies that are walking around because as we've seen in anything, it doesn't just have to be Walking Dead, but in any zombie genre we've seen, it is more zombies than people by a lot, like 10 to 1. But I feel like the whole world would just smell like that.
Yeah, like
everything.
It's what you just said. Like you would get used to it. You'd probably just get used to the smell.
No, I don't agree because I think out in open air, no matter how bad it is, it's going to go away. And then when you get inside of a house in a building, you open up the door and all of a sudden you're going to smell that rotten meat. You're going to know something's in there. But they'll be walking through the house and all of a sudden a zombie will come around the corner and they had no idea it was in there. I don't believe that.
Are they really are they really rotten?
Yes.
They don't decompose as they go on, do they?
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they do?
They will continually just decompose
well,
because they don't have blood.
So they would just kill them? And zombies would technically just die off?
They would they would eventually disintegrate.
I didn't know that.
Just like, they're not just perpetually
as long as the
stuck
brain is intact, I mean, like we've seen in these movies, like decapitated zombies were still trying to eat you. They just couldn't do anything because it was just their head.
Just the head, right.
Until you shoot them in the head. Now, that might not be the case. If zombies really happen, there might not be any way to kill them. They might just keep fucking coming.
Eventually, something has to stop, that was the impression that I got from The Walking Dead and from other zombie movies, is that eventually a zombie is going to decompose to the point where its muscles, if it's just skeleton, it can't move. It has to have some kind of muscle that moves it. So once it decomposes past that point, it's just a skeleton.
So, why are zombies, always more athletic than, regular humans, even though their muscles are, deteriorated?
They're usually
can't
not.
Feel pain.
In a proper zombie movie, they're usually pretty easy to kill.
Yeah.
It's just their massive numbers.
I understand his theory, though. What he's saying is they don't stop. In Zombieland, they just ran and they never stopped running.
Yeah.
And it's like I think that's what stops you from running.
You
Like
get
when
tired.
you're running, what stops you? You get tired,
Yeah,
fatigue, it starts
yeah.
hurting maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't have that.
You're correct. And they did that. In, I think World War
That's
II.
like you're talking about from okay.
Like they don't.
I get what you're
like,
saying.
Like they don't have that physical pain.
Their
They don't have
mind-
that mental.
Their mind wouldn't tell them to stop, but
Yeah.
eventually their bodies would betray them.
Well, yeah, but that's called atrophy, and that's when your body just collapses.
Yeah, but we're already thinking that their muscles are significantly decomposed from a physical standpoint. How are they so much? Even if they didn't feel, they could push
I
past.
think you're getting too deep into this.
No, he's right on a good track, and where exactly I wanted to go with it is, okay, so I can't remember which, it was either Z Nation, which is a really good show. It's kind of a zombie comedy. I think it was in Z Nation that they explained that when they're newly dead, someone just died, they can run, and they're fast, and they're strong. But as the weeks go on, they get weaker because their body starts decomposing, and that's when they shamble.
Well, it wouldn't have made for a very good TV show if
They just
after the first 2 seasons they were just gone. You
Well,
know?
but that's the scary thing about zombie movies, whether it's a zombie movie from the Rising of the Dead or a zombie movie from a virus standpoint, like a 28 Days Later, it's an army that continues to grow. That's what the fear is in Game of Thrones. Do you watch Game of Thrones? Dark Intern? Okay. They're worried about the further that army comes down closer to King's Landing, it
The
just keeps
more
getting
people-
bigger and bigger, because every time he kills somebody, the Night King raises them all up. So this is the exact opposite of a human army, where it gets smaller and smaller. This one gets bigger and bigger.
Is he like is the Night King like a zombie? What?
Yes.
But he's so. Well, I guess Game of Thrones is like fantasy, so it doesn't. It's all kind of.
It is, but
It's all kind of because
the-
he's not really like.
But that's a zombie army. That whole, I mean, if you want to get into it in depth, I mean, he killed the dragon with his
Spear.
and then brought it back. It's a zombie
Dragon.
army. Like
Yeah.
all of them are
That scene where
everything's a
they're-
zombie.
That scene where they're rowing away after they
Right.
just got destroyed in that silence.
and he raises them all
Yeah,
back from the
it's-
dead at Hardhome or whatever.
Yeah.
What a chilling episode that was. I don't want to get too much into Game of Thrones because I know that that's an episode coming up for sure. Just from the standpoint of, talking about zombies, the scary thing is the numbers of zombies, that you can be overrun, 100 of
Yeah.
them come at you,
Yeah.
you're kind of screwed.
Did,
and that's where the fear of that comes.
Was World War Z a zombie movie?
Yeah, it
You
was
not see
like
it was a
No.
book first. It was a book.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was a
It's
zombie movie.
It got glazed over because it was literally in the middle of like the zombie craze. Like that was when Walking Dead first came out.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you had Zombie Land, and you had people bringing like all these old zombie movies back to life, and it was like.
So
and
is
yes,
that where like the satire of
that's
Zombieland?
that's the best part about the zombie genre. Is there's so many different ways you can take it. I mean, you can take it very, very seriously,
Yeah.
or you can do like Zombieland, and it's just a kind of funny horror movie, like it's very,
Well, it's funny
on
how
the nose.
He had like rules, like you just said, like that first thing. But
Yeah.
he had like rules, but they're like
Right.
stupid rules. Like
They were funny, though.
cardio.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Cardio.
double
and
tap.
Double tap. Zombieland was great, and I know that they're working on a sequel, and I just hope they don't destroy it,
Yeah.
because the first one is a gem. It was so
Yeah.
good.
The ever-ending pursuit of Twinkies was my
Yes.
favorite effing part. Like that whole speech he gives them outside of there's an expiration date on Twinkies, and its little meter is cranking down to E. Like, I just love that whole little speech he gives them about it.
He's
Like,
Woody Harrelson.
A GD Twinkie.
I love the zombie video games.
Yeah.
Left 4 Dead. It's one of my favorites of all
Wow,
time.
remember how fun
Resident
that was?
Evil,
You
my
get 4 of your
God.
friends and just
Man,
that was a fun
The
game.
I mean, I've never
was a
been
fun
more
game.
scared in my life than playing the original Resident Evil
Yeah.
game.
Those
the way
people
that
used
they
to,
would just jump out at
Oh,
you.
people
my
used to
God.
say those games were scary.
They were.
Oh
but
yeah, the first two,
yeah.
the one in the mansion. Good God.
The way
Yeah.
they were designed, stuff would just pop out right in front of you. Boom. And it was great.
Moving on from zombies, I like the parasitic kind of horror movies as well, like The Thing, Contagion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was what was the movie where they're on the plane?
Quarantine?
Quarantine. and then they made like a second one.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't a particularly good movie. I just like the concept of it.
If
I like
you-
the concept of like something you cannot see or know. Like it just, that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Quarantine was the remake of a Spanish-made movie called Record, R-E-C, and it was about a news team that went into this building. The way they explained it was the rabies virus had gotten loose because in the very first floor of this apartment building was a veterinarian's office, and they had brought this animal that was rabid or whatever, and so the parasite or the contagion or whatever went up through the apartment building. And then at the very end, when she makes it up to the penthouse, the place goes dark, all the lights go out. She's got like the night vision on the camera that she can see. Whatever it is, they never really explain it, and that's one of those things that we were talking about before, where you don't have an explanation. This demon or zombie or whatever is walking through the dark, and it can't see either, but it can like smell her and know she's in there, and she's trying to be quiet. It's real creepy.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to that one scene where she turns the camera to her, and it's like right over her shoulder.
Right, it's right behind her. That's just awesome.
That they made a second one, and it was on like a plane. It was like in the same. It was almost kind of like the Cloverfield stuff. It was just from different points of view.
Yeah.
But the Thing, that movie, he's never like. I don't think he would be able to sit through it.
The original was in like 1952 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
the
John
Kurt
Carpenter
Russell.
remade it, which that's one of the few that we've talked about remakes that were better. And it was
Kurt Russell's so good in that movie.
It was because Kurt Russell's awesome. And all the actors in that movie are great. But it was the remake was so much better, not only because special effects were better, but just they told the story better. It was a little more, scientifically advanced, I guess.
A little overview. I'm not going to get too far into it, but it's basically a parasite that they find. It gets into like one of them, and then it starts spreading throughout the camp, and they're like on Antarctica.
It's basically a parasite from space, and it can replicate any biological organism that it comes in contact with.
And it was frozen in the ice.
And the freakiest thing was the dog.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. The movie opens up and this dog is running across Antarctica and this guy in a helicopter is trying to shoot it. That's how it opens up. They don't explain anything else. And the guy is from a foreign, like Norwegian outpost. And so they can't communicate with the guy. So they don't understand. He's trying to tell them, you got to kill this thing. You got to burn this thing. And they just think he's lost his mind. He's gone crazy. So they take him down. They shoot him and kill him. And then this dog is in their camps. And then they're like, well, we'll take care of this dog. And then shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
It's
great.
insane.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
That, and maybe to move into maybe the last topic of horror movies, which it's more of like a parallel, different dimension kind of like Hellraiser. And I still, to this day, I mean, it's like, what is it, like an alternate dimension of hell that these things come from, like Pinhead comes from? And
I would wrap that in paranormal.
Okay.
The first one, how many did they make? 3, 4?
A bunch.
The first one was really, really good. And then after that, there's certain movies I feel like that there's a trick in the movie, whether it's a twist or something like that. Kind of like The Ring, which you've never seen, of course. It was one of the ones on the list. It's a one-trick pony. Once you know the twist, then it's hard to make a sequel because you already know. The Ring was like that.
Halloween was like that.
The Others. Did you ever see The Others with Nicole Kidman?
Yeah.
The surprise twist at the end of that movie, you couldn't replicate it. You could never make an Others 2 because the surprise twist reveals too much.
Yeah.
It'd be like making a Sixth Sense 2.
Right, exactly.
Like,
a nice twist like that. And sometimes they try to do that with movies, and I felt Hellraiser was like that. That once you knew the trick, it didn't make any sense. The Hellraiser movie, from the original to the other one, started getting more into the how much can we gore you out.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We already
probably-
told the story, but now we just want to gore you.
It probably is what kicked off the gore. There were people getting their skin ripped off in that movie. I mean, you're getting... One girl had, skin was, peeled back on her skull. She was one of the demons, and, he would pull, pins out of his head and kill people. I mean, it was gory.
Yeah.
Because it came after Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. So at that point in time, it was like, can I gross you out more than those movies did?
Yeah.
So it would get into real wicked stuff. But, it got more into the paranormal, supernatural, the from hell and from, other dimensions or the underworld and that kind of stuff.
Everyone dies, except, one person. If you find a good character in that movie that you, really attach to and you like them, they're more than likely going to die. I watched them when I was like 10, 11 years old, and you watch Hellraiser for the first time at 10 years old, she'll fuck you up.
Yeah, man. What about classic horror movies? You know, they had people running out of the theaters back in the day.
The Blob.
You know, well, I'm even thinking earlier than that. I'm thinking of like The Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, Frankenstein.
Nosferatu.
Yes, Nosferatu.
Crazy movie.
I enjoy going back and watching those movies, and a lot of time this time of year they'll replay them on AMC and stuff because of the nostalgia, you know, and to see. I mean, and the things that they did for special effects. I mean, you know, Boris Karloff and those guys, they would actually sew their skin so it had scars and things. They wouldn't put like, you know, rubber makeup on like we do nowadays and stuff. They were the masters of horror back then. He would say in interviews, if it leaves a scar or whatever, that just means it's going to look cooler for the next movie that I do. I mean, that was hardcore for your art. And
nowadays, you don't like. Nowadays, they can replicate anything. I mean, altering your body to make something look cool. Now you can. I mean, honestly, it's like a couple hours worth of makeup, and you look like you just rose from the fucking dead.
Yeah, or they can just paint your face green or put you on a motion capture stage and do it all computer generated.
Yeah.
You just have to have so much more of a respect for everything they did, for working with what they had, and
it's just great, you know. I mean, there were certain movies. Well, I think it was Frankenstein that they actually had a guy come out in the movie. He comes out and he gives a warning to people.
Like an intermission.
Yeah, the guy comes out and he says this is, you know, a disturbing movie and that kind of thing. And nowadays it's not even close to a disturbing movie. But back then in 1931 or 32, whenever that came out, that was a mess. You know, Night of the Living Dead was even the same in the 60s. King Kong, you know, they said people were fainting in the theaters.
The original King Kong?
Yeah, the 1933 King Kong.
Really?
So people were fainting in the theaters and stuff because it was just so wild. And if you watch that movie, it's actually pretty graphic. Yeah. Remember a couple of episodes back we were talking about how, you know, Godzilla, I always said that he should come in and grab people and throw them in his mouth like Pez.
Yeah, that's what he did. Or he would
in
go crazy.
In King Kong, he did.
Yeah.
If you watch the unedited version of the 1933 King Kong, he would pick people up and bite them.
Yeah, because like in the last scene, does he grab one of the planes out of the air in the last scene? Yeah. He was going crazy.
I mean, it was violent, you know, for its time.
How do we feel about the remake of that movie?
I don't think I ever saw it all the way through.
The new one, the Kong Island, or I mean, there's been 5 remakes.
The one that Jack Black was in.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I thought it was
fun. I don't think it was that bad.
But I've seen it.
You didn't see that one?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I mean, that's...
I tend to stay away from movies like that until I can like watch them on DVD, and then I have to go out and find it. And, you know,
I want to say
I don't go to theaters to see the remakes of the. Like I went to the theater to see the sequel remake of Halloween because it's Halloween,
and it was a sequel.
I've never really been into those Kong or like big, you know, Planet of the Apes or things like that. I've never really gotten into.
Does that classify as horror?
Planet of the Apes? I wouldn't consider it a horror. It's more like a science fiction.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, like, I never really got into those, like, animal outbreak kind of movies or rebellion kind of movies.
Godzilla, is that?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I liked Godzilla. I liked the 2000 one. I got into that. I really liked the new version that they made, just from the first scene when those guys are like halo jumping into the city. Like that made the movie for me because that was just a cool scene of those guys like coming through the clouds and you could see like the red smoke coming from their feet. It was insane.
Is there any like environmental, like something crazy in the environment happens naturally?
The Happening.
That like causes a horror movie?
The Happening was
you had to bring that up.
It was not a very good movie, but it was a movie like what you're talking about where the earth had been drained of so many resources that it had to attack back. So it put this like pheromone or some type of airborne agent into the earth that was making people kill themselves. I mean, it was an entertaining movie to the point, like it was just entertaining to see that kind of like dynamic, but it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Well, it was an M. Night Shyamalan
but like
movie. Shyamalan.
It's definitely not a horror movie, but like you could have taken like a movie like The Day After Tomorrow, kind of made that.
Didn't it have Matt Damon in it?
No.
Whenever they do an environmental type movie like that, it's more of a natural disaster than a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm saying you could. There are probably ways you could spin it into.
Well, that's what M. Night tried to do with The Happening, and it was one of those movies where it's like, okay, why is it? Because you didn't explain what was going on until the very end, and then you go, that kind of sucks. Just like most M. Night Shyamalan movies.
The one that I liked, Devil. Did you ever see Devil?
About the one in the
elevator? I thought that movie was awesome.
The only problem that I had, I didn't mind it, but I felt it was predictable. I knew it was that lady.
Yeah, but it just...
I knew it was.
It was awesome. Like, just building up to it, and then, just... It was just a good movie. I enjoyed it. But he makes one good one every, 6 or 7 years.
He's got good ideas, but I just don't think he knows how to end them like we talked about. He just goes, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to do this. And it doesn't work out. But, that one I felt, it was cool. I loved the concept, but I just felt it was predictable.
Next year we'll come up with some more. This is a never-ending topic.
Oh,
horror movies.
We don't even have to wait till Halloween. We'll talk more about horror for sure.
Spectrum of awesome. I love horror movies.
Thanks for showing me some cool movies.
You only watched half of one.
I know.
Of one.
I got some homework.
You got lots of homework.
Yeah, you're gonna be back in Daytona before
I've got 10 movies. Somehow
one.
we have to get those 10 movies on your computer. All right. So this is episode 5 of Terra Neuh 1. We'll see y'all next week.